Hey there, welcome back to the Back Pocket Creative, and thank you for listening, watching, whatever you do to support me. I appreciate it. So, last couple weeks have been kind of interesting. So, the last one that I did was kind of more pushing you to listen to the last two. And so, still encourage you, if you haven't listened to those two, go ahead and listen to those two. But today, I was kind of reflecting on things with that whole conversation that I had, and then some other things I've had in the past, and then things that I've been dealing with lately. And one thing, that I've really kind of been resonating with is how, like, what I realized was a lot of my happiness as a creative, as someone working in the space that I do, was tied in what I did and not who I was. And so I know we hear that a lot where it's like, your worth isn't in what you do, it's who you are, like, all that stuff. And I am 100% on board with that. And I think that's really tough to do because a lot of times as creatives, we're so pouring into so much of our work that we become the thing that we do. And I think we have to be careful to let ourselves like basically disassociate from who we are, that now everything that we do is the only thing we are. And I think it's kind of easier said than done. And so for me, when I walked into the industry that I walked into at a young age, like in the position, the responsibility that I walked into, I came into it where my self-worth was built on what I could do, the praise of people, what people thought of me, and my craft specifically. And so when that began to wane, or, people begin to use that against me, because that's something I realized early, was people would use that of me being tied up in how I felt about the thing that I did and being myself. They would kind of use it against me. They would kind of weaponize it. And, they knew what they were doing, and they would do it to get me to do more, or to, give up more of my personal time. And slowly but surely, I ended up basically where I was kind of a slave to that entire situation. And I felt like if I didn't do it, then I wasn't worth anything. And if I didn't do more, and if I didn't give more, and if I didn't, basically lay everything down to chase after being better and being better at my craft, then like I wasn't worth anything, because that's how people made me feel. And to be honest, like that's ultimately why I'm, kind of got out of everything I was in, was because it made it feel like, okay, well, if I can't do this, I have to get better at it, because, then I'm worth nothing to this person, because this person only sees me as a means to an end. And if I don't, create that means to an end as a creative, and I don't come up with all these things quickly, and I don't execute on all these projects, then I'm just worthless. And I shouldn't even exist. And I think that's a dark place to get to, because then you start to feel like, that the only thing important is what you do, and that your happiness is important. Because to be honest, where I was basically being told in this stage of my life, and once again, it's a while ago now, like it's not the last place I was at. It's been a while. So to people that are trying to figure out everything that I talk about, I'm not talking about a specific place that you think I'm talking about. I'm talking about something else. But in that place, I think I just got to a place where it was like, man, everything that I was doing was so tied up in like people pleasing and things like that, because I didn't think that I was worth anything outside of what I was doing, the thing that I was, giving people, the product that I was creating. I finally had to get to a place where I was like, you know what, like, I don't care what this person thinks about me. I don't care if this product isn't the best that I can possibly do. I have to move forward and be self-confident. And, happiness matters. I think a lot of times, and I've talked about it previously, but like, I think sometimes people are like, oh, you should sell out for your job. You should do this. I got told, hey, you need to marry this place. Like, this needs to be everything you do. It's like, no, actually, that's an awful thing. And if you're being told that by an employer or something like that, that's not a good environment. You shouldn't be there. Because I think the problem is that they want so much out of you, because they're willing to discard you as soon as you're no longer hitting a threshold. So especially, just being honest, in the church world, and it's just this way, is that, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 year olds, they'll stick with you for 2 to 3 years. And then when you run out of steam, when you decide to build a family, when you decide to focus more on yourself, when you start doing hobbies, you start doing side businesses, they're going to kick you to the curb. and then all this time that you spent developing things for them, doing things for them, sacrificing for them, won't matter anymore because you were just a means to an end. And they're going to get another 19, 20, 21-year-old, and they're going to bring them in, and they're going to do the same thing you did. And then 3 years later, you're probably going to end up talking to them and realizing the similarities of how they just basically use that person as a creative and burn them to the end of themselves, and now they're just a shadow of themselves, just a shell of themselves. And that's how I felt. Is I realized, like, dang, like I let these people literally singe everything inside of me because I was chasing after this thing that was giving me self-worth, and it never filled. And then when it got to the end, I just felt completely just taken advantage of. And like at the end of the day, like, wow, like these people, not only do they not talk to me now, but like it was literally like as soon as everything ended, like they didn't even talk to me even the day after, the week after, the month after. I was literally garbage to them, and realized, like, dang, like those are the type of people you have to run from. Like those are the people, I don't care how morally right they look, or I don't care what they've achieved in life. If they're willing to do that to somebody, especially somebody that's, if you're a creative, like you have to pour so much out of your personal life and your personal self that eventually, like, you are kind of giving of yourself. And like, to treat someone like that, man, like those are truly awful people. And I've worked for those type of people. And to be completely honest, like, no, like I forgive them in the sense that, yes, I get that, we have to forgive and let go. But at the same time, it's like they knew better. They know better. And so it's like, hopefully they either change or, then they lose their credibility over time. Like that's the only thing you can hope, is that either they change or they lose their position. So they can't harm anyone else in those areas, and so I think the biggest thing for me is to protect yourself from those type of people. You have to derive self-worth somewhere else. And so, you have to be happy. You have to be doing things that make you happy, not just things that make other people happy and other people, satisfied in your gift and the things that you do. And so, it's one of those things. It's kind of like a tough thing because, like, I get, like, sometimes you have to climb and you have to go, and I get it. Like, early in your career, like that helped me, right? But kind of the escalation of all of that, I was still getting jobs and still getting things from that place, to be honest. And like it helped me long term, but at the same time, it burned me so bad that like I was in a good place and I couldn't really receive from it because how bad I had been hurt by this other place. And so it kind of stunted my growth of what I could have been in that season. And so, now I'm free from it. Like, truly, like, it doesn't affect me. But at the same time, I think I get a little bit of an anger when I see other people going through the same thing. And so that's kind of why I like to talk about it, why I like to be a little bit passionate about it, because, I think for so long people have thought like, oh, well, if I take this young person who's excited about doing this creative stuff, and if I can squeeze them dry, well, I can just get another one in 3 years. And I think the problem is now what that's done is it's created so many like hurt people. And now I know churches who have had vacant creative seats for 2, 3, 4 years now, going even predating the pandemic, and they can't fill their spots because everybody with experience, everybody who's ever sat in that type of seat, they don't even go back. They would rather just do what they're doing. They would rather, even some of them, so I know some guys that sat on creative positions, sat on creative seats for years, for a decade, and they got out of it, and now they're just doing a normal job, just not even remotely to do with what they love in that sense, because they just don't want the politics and the drama and the just the nastiness that comes with it. And so I think that's where you have to protect yourself. You have to figure out, hey, is this an environment that actually cares and has balance to it? Or is everything I'm going to do always tied up in performance and how, hey, if things aren't right, are they going to squeeze me? Are they going to make me feel like I'm just a piece of trash? Like, I mean, it's tough. Like, it's a very dangerous place to be in, but I think the way you get there is if your self-worth isn't tied to something that's tangible. for you, and self-worth is tied to performance. And so that's basically the end of this episode. Just encourage you to look at your self-worth and like figure out where you derive it from, and that you know where you get it from, and that you don't get it from projects or where you work at. You get it from other things, external things that aren't tied up in the things you do, but in what you do, and in who you are. So all right, well, I'll see you next week.